This is The Culture.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast. We are here to talk about the long-awaited and highly anticipated Dune Part Two. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined for this podcast by Liz Seiko.
Hello.
And the biggest Dune fan on the planet, Vinny Albano.
Hello.
So we're going to start this review by giving our non-spoiler thoughts to the people who haven't had a chance to see it. We wanted to get this review out to the people who did have a chance to see it opening weekend, for the passionate fans, and the movie did really, really well at the box office opening weekend. It's the highest opening weekend since Barbie, so the movie's doing great, which is awesome, but we'll still stick for the first 5-10 minutes. We're going to try to give our non-spoiler thoughts on the movie, and then we'll warn you guys when we start to go into spoilers. So, broad strokes, let's talk about how we felt about the first Dune before we go into Dune Part 2, just overall. So, Liz, we'll start with you, and then Vinny will go to you. What did you think of the first Dune, which kind of came out in that weird COVID time, because it came out in 2021, but it was delayed initially, wasn't it? That was pushed because of COVID, I think.
I believe so.
Yeah, so it was supposed to come out 2020. That got pushed to 2021. This movie also had its own pushes and things like that. But the first Dune, how did you feel about that story, and were you highly anticipating Dune Part 2?
Yes, I really enjoyed the first film. I did think I was a part of that group, though, of the viewership that thought there were some pacing issues. It definitely dragged, but I understand why, because they didn't want to kind of overwhelm us with the world. I think since it's a new world that they're stepping people's toes into for the first time, they wanted to lay it out for us, show us the rules, show us the characters, and really let us get comfortable with things. So I understand why they went a little bit easier on the overall plot and information. But overall, I think it's a great film. I rewatched it before going and seeing this film because I wanted to refresh myself. And I actually think that, both Dune films, the rewatchability is great. It's kind of, we were talking a little bit before about Lord of the Rings. I feel like Lord of the Rings films you can watch over and over and over again, and you're still gonna just be like, oh, I totally forgot about that, or I didn't realize that, or I'm making this connection now. And I feel the same way about Dune Part 1. I watched literally this weekend, and there were moments that I was like, man, I don't remember this, or there were moments that I was like, now I understand what the character's motive was or why they showed this specifically. So I was a big fan of the first one, and I was definitely hyped for the Part 2.
Vinny?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Dune Part 1 was my favorite movie of 2021. Like we mentioned, it's a bit of a weaker year, but still, it was so good. I've watched it 3 or 4 times now. I saw it in IMAX, I saw it in theaters, and then once it went onto streaming, I watched it over. I watched it over again. So I really enjoyed Dune Part 1 to the point where for this, as soon as the tickets came out, I got early fan event screening tickets. I believe 5 days before the official release date. So yeah, I really loved Part 1.
Yeah. So Vinny's seen Dune Part 2 twice already for our audience.
I have. Yeah. And I think we'll get into this, but I really loved this movie to the fact that I saw it at the fan event at the early screening, and then later that week on Friday, which was technically opening day, I got tickets to see it in 70 millimeter at 9 a.m. in the morning. And it was in Pennsylvania, crazy. So I had to drive an hour and a half away. So, yeah.
That's my favorite thing about you, Vinny.
Thank you.
So, similar to you, I do think it was a weaker year, but the first Dune film was my favorite movie of the year as well. And that was one where we were still in that weird period of not a lot of movies were even coming to theaters still. A lot of companies were just let's just drop it on streaming so we could bump our streaming numbers while people are still mostly staying at home. And the numbers are getting better for cinemas, obviously, this past year, and now with this movie, you're starting to see things happen. Bob Marley, too, we were kind of shocked with the box office and how well that movie's doing. Great. So things are starting to hopefully level out and start to get audiences back in theaters. But I did see the first one in theaters, and I loved the movie theater experience for that one. And I was really interested in the world. I thought that it was really unique, and someone who I came to Star Wars like at a later age, I was just kind of looking forward to seeing something a little bit different, like that was on this epic scale. And Dune just reminded me of something that was entirely different, especially because the novels came out so much earlier. And then having a visionary like Denis Villeneuve sort of headlining that and helming it was really interesting to me as well. So that's the first movie. We all enjoyed the first movie. Broad thoughts about the second movie. Vinny already alluded to it a little bit. He absolutely loved it. I also absolutely adored this movie, without going into spoilers. Like, everyone talks about just scale in terms of this movie, and it really is like, there is no other word to describe it other than epic. It's just massive on the scale of filmmaking, on the scale of star power, on the scale of visuals, on the scale of the score. Like, everything within this movie makes it such a remarkable movie that I can't recommend enough for people to go to the theater and see it. If you're someone that can handle IMAX, some people can. So if you can't, like, just go see it in a theater. But IMAX, I saw it also on IMAX 70mm on Saturday. We're filming this on Monday. And my friend and I, my friend Nikki, who I saw it with, as soon as we walked out of the movie, we couldn't speak for like 5 minutes. So it's a really great movie. There's a lot to love about it. But Liz, what were your broad thoughts about it as well?
Yeah, so I saw this in Dolby, so it was great. I love the film. I think that it actually really kind of is higher production-wise, character-wise, story-wise than the first one. I think they really stretched themselves as a production team and a creative ensemble. I think that there was so much information and storytelling going on that it could have gotten lost. It could have gotten messy, but in my opinion, they did really well of keeping the pacing going and not letting it drop, while also not confusing the viewer if you don't know the story already. Because I don't know about you guys, but I go into these films very blind. I don't know anything about the Dune world. I don't know where the characters are going. I don't know anything about the books. So all my knowledge is coming from my first viewings of these films. I think it's incredible. I wouldn't say it's a perfect film, only because of small nitpicky things, which when I think about it, they're very small, which I'll get into. And maybe I'd feel different after a second viewing because it is a lot of information that you're taking in at a first viewing. They show a lot of new characters who obviously just through like looking at the casting lists, you kind of have an awareness. But when they're introducing to you, I think they could maybe give a little bit of information. And I know that this is the complete opposite of what I normally say. A part of me is like, maybe they should have done a 3-hour runtime just to give a little bit more air around introducing these new characters. But to that point, something that you said earlier, DJ, when we were talking before, is that I think maybe they just don't want to do that vibe of taking like a breath to introduce a new character. Kind of like what you were saying, you said before we started filming in the first episode or the first film, the way they introduced Zendaya's character, they just threw her in, didn't really explain, and were like, here she is. So maybe that's just the take that they wanted to go with this, and they didn't want audiences to like have a checklist of, okay, this is the character, this is what their motives are, now watch the story unfold. They want you to kind of watch as the unveiling of the character becomes as the story keeps going.
Yeah, and I had one more thing kind of going off of that. I think, and you're someone who's at least started the novel, Vinny, so I'm curious on your thoughts of this too, but I think so much of it is that Denis wants people to buy into the world with the characters being a part, like obviously a big part of it, but he wants people to buy into the politics and the geography and just the look and the visuals of what that world sort of embodies, with the characters sort of supplementing it. And I think that's why he's not like, think about some other like major franchises where like you have like hero shots. Like you don't have very many of those in this movie because so much of it is based on the politics of like all it reminds me. So I regrettably, people are gonna probably kill me in the comments for this, I've only seen one of the Lord of the Rings movies, so I can't compare it to that. But
I'll be the first one to be.
To me, it reminds me a lot of like earlier seasons of Game of Thrones, like in the way that like everybody
Dune does, or
Dune
okay.
does. and in the way that like the politics and the families and the different houses sort of come together, and the religious aspects and the way that they sort of handle their own worlds and their own sort of surroundings and environments. That's kind of the vibe I got from it, which I think would correlate to what you're saying, where I don't think Denis gave a shit kindly about being like, we're going to give you all the exposition on a character. It's like, no, we want you to buy into this world, and we're going to make you love these characters even if you don't have every single bit of information about them. You know, Vinny?
No, I totally agree. I think that's the reason why I love Dune so much, is that it reminds me of, I have a very like niche liking to medieval like political thriller. Like that's why I love Game of Thrones so much, and that's what Dune reminds me of. It's very historical, and although it takes place in this distant future with, you know, sci-fi setting on a galactic scale, it is at its heart this very historical, very like religious political thriller, which is why I really like it so much. I know you meant like I did start reading the book, but just being honest here to our audience, I haven't finished the first book. I got only like a little bit into it, and then it was just like that was it. But I do intend to, after this, I do want to return to them, because these two movies and what Villeneuve has done with these movies, it's incredible. It is incredible. And I think the world and that aspect that you talk about, where it's so enriched with this tension of religion and politics, is what fascinates me so much. And I think he did a great job at executing that on screen.
Yeah, for sure. I think even a lot of the things with the Reverend Mothers and the way that sort of, even within the Fremen's world, like they have different outlooks, which I don't want to dive too deep into that because that's spoiling things. But like, it was cool to see that, because in the first movie we don't get a lot of what the Fremen are. Like you really, it's a very quick introduction, and then the movie basically ends. And that's like my one, like not even a gripe. It's just like a very small thing where it felt like crazily, a movie that's 2 hours and 45 minutes, it felt like it just ended like that, which like I just felt like it ended on like an abrupt point. I was like, fuck. Like
the first one or the second one?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Like even this one, I was like, no, I could have done with more. But like like you had said, and this is not spoiling anything for the movie, but there's a character in the first movie that doesn't return at all, and then there's another character that was cast, mysteriously cast, and apparently he was like heartbroken that he wasn't in the, which that's always really sad, but like he was cast in a mysterious role. It was Tim Blake Nelson, and he's just cut from the movie entirely. So we were saying like there has to be like a 3.5 hour cut of this movie, and they chopped it down to 2 hours and 46 minutes, which felt like the right time for me. I could have dealt with more, but I think it was just because I was so enamored and entrenched in what Denis was trying to build with Arrakis in general.
I also think we'll talk about the ending in depth later, but I think the way they ended it was needed. Otherwise, you're talking about a 3.5 hour, possibly longer film.
Yeah.
Because
right.
the way that they ended it, they were about, I mean, I won't get into spoilers, but it's definitely an ending leading to another film.
Yeah, and not one that feels so reliant on a set. Like, you know how like the first movie, I felt like some of the gripes were that people enjoyed the movie, but it felt like there was like...
It was build up.
It was a lot of build up. And this movie, it could be succinct. And you're going to hear a lot of comparisons in film criticism, and I'll be the first to start it, I guess, here. But like, this is their Empire Strikes Back. Like, this is how they're trying to end. A New Hope is a really great movie because it started something off, and it really introduces you to the world and introduces you to these characters, but the stakes are so much higher, and there's such an underlying aspect of dread with like the Empire in that second movie. And with this, like, you're seeing something unfold in which you're seeing a character, and multiple characters, but one in particular that we'll get to, where you're seeing a legitimate transformation, and it's just kind of remarkable to see on screen. So
it's great.
Did you have any other non-spoiler things you think you can say?
I just think that keeping it non-spoiler, I just think this movie is incredible from beginning to end. I'm going to sound like a broken record like throughout the entire review, But just going through everything, this is such an incredible movie. Like, I mean, I'll just start by talking about the filmmaking.
Oh, the cinematography.
Woo, that's what I was just going to start on, because Greig Fraiser is one of my favorite DPs. He is a DP who has inspired me a lot in my own work and has taught me a lot in my own work. He did The Batman, and his work in The Batman, as well as Dune Part 1, in which he won an Oscar for, is breathtaking. And then he's here, and it's that, but on steroids. And it is beautiful. Like, I love Greig Fraiser's work here. I just love how, one, he shot this on Arri Alexa's Arri Alexa LF cameras. He uses that IMAX. I know, Liz, you said you didn't see it in IMAX.
No, Dolby.
All right, but it's such a shame.
Go see it again in IMAX.
Yeah, the IMAX is so good because he really like pushes the capability of these cameras to its max potential. Like, he fits so much in frame that the only, like you said, Darian, the only word that comes to mind is just epic. Like, the scale of the photography is just epic. And I love how there's so many creative elements of the cinematography as well. How on Getty Prime, how the black sun of Getty Prime, it's a whole black and white sequence. Not spoilers, it's in the trailer.
Yep.
That was shot on infrared camera. And that is just mind-blowing to me. I know Denis talks about it in interviews a lot, and how in those sequences, the black and white it's not like, oh, we're just going to desaturate this in post. You can like see the veins, and like the skin is almost translucent on these actors. And also, I mean, this is something I love Greig Fraiser for in his work in The Batman, but also here, his use of just like shallow depth of field and low aperture lenses, how just like a simple rack focus from focusing to like something in the foreground, something in the background, it just displays so much storytelling. And I mean, I could be going on and on for hours, so I apologize. Even just like I said, just like, it's so creative, it's so beautiful. The orange tinted shots of the eclipse in the desert of Arrakis, or the sun setting upon, Timmy and Zendaya's characters. It's just beautiful. Just absolutely stunning. Also, Hans Zimmer's score. Holy, oh my. It is, obviously keeping this spoiler free. And if you guys want to comment on this, I love his score. When Dune Part 1 came out, his score was like all I listened to for that next month, and then on and on. And this past week, the only thing I've been listening to is his score here. It just like is a step up completely. And it feels so much more like, like there's so much more to it. He like implements these like crazy war horns and woods and like wind elements. It feels so much more like surreal. I love it.
Yeah, so this is like, hopefully there's some sports fans out there that can like correlate to this, but to me it feels like with this film, and they were all together for the first movie too, but it felt like with Dune Part 2, it was like bringing together all stars, like for when like LeBron went to the Miami Heat and they all were at the top of their games, and they all came together to bring like this heightened version of themselves, but also give up so much of themselves to find this even keeled vision, because so much of it is top tier filmmaking. Like you were talking about with the cinematography, it's remarkable, but Denis' attention to detail and direction too, I think, is so incredible. And when you look at his filmography throughout the years, like, he just keeps growing in terms of the scale of what he's doing, and it doesn't feel like he is ever the type of filmmaker to like bend under that. You know what I mean? Like, he just accepts all challenges, and he's just like, yeah, I'll just make like one of the greatest and biggest movies ever made. and it's gonna be fine. And then like, yeah, if they want me to do a third, I'll do a third.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck?
It's so
Like,
nonchalant.
it's crazy. And to me, the big thing with it, and he said this in interviews, and I think he was misquoted, and I'm glad he like came out and talked about it because too much clickbaity shit in the world. But they were like, there was like a quote where he was like, I don't like dialogue or whatever. And
I saw
he was
that.
really alluding to the fact that he wants to essentially create a world visually and have that supplement it. And I think that there are not a lot of filmmakers that can do that as good as Denis can. And I bet you that there are a lot of filmmakers that if they could do it that way, they would do it that way. But he's able to even in things like I really love Prisoners, which is one of the first movies he ever did. And in my opinion, what elevates that movie, as great as the performances are, as great as the story is, it's a fairly simple story. Like, we've seen kidnapping stories, but like the cinematography in that movie is fucking incredible.
That was Roger Deakins.
Yeah. But he did, that was what his like, was that his first like big American movie? It was, right? Prisoners was.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
He had a French film, Incendies, before that.
But he didn't work with like Deakins at that point. So like that's his first big American movie, and he's working with one of the greatest cinematographers to ever live. And that wasn't too big of a challenge for him either. You know what I mean? So there's so much kind of going off what you said. The movie is just robust and it's tight and it's great. It's just, it's such a great package of filmmaking and storytelling. And we're going to, I feel like we need to get into spoilers, but is there anything else you want to say before, like the craftsmanship or anything?
No, I mean, it's gorgeous. It's literally a gorgeous film. I feel like you could just pause it at any second and just stare at the picture that's in front of you, and you'd be like, oh my God, like the vision that they had, it really came true. And I think it is just a testament to filmmaking that, I mean, people used to say that this is the book and like the story that shouldn't have been on film, and that was impossible to make into a film. And the fact that they were able to do it to this grandiose level and actually make people walk away impressed with it is huge. And I think they did a great job.
Yeah. Should we go into spoilers?
I just want to say,
Go ahead.
I just want to say a little bit more, because I think like if the audience is watching, haven't seen the film yet, there's a lot more that I want to talk about that isn't going into like the details. One, everyone, dude, the cast here is crazy.
It's insane.
I mean, we talked about how big it is, like how you mentioned, like, you know, this is like we're gonna
look back at this cast and we're gonna be in awe of the fact that they were able to assemble this many great, not only up and coming actors in the industry that are gonna lead decades of movie going audiences, but people like the way that, like, when Christopher Walken was in like Deer Hunter and he was like one of the young up and comers, like Christopher Walken is in this fucking movie, everybody. Like, holy shit. Josh Brolin, who was the biggest villain in the history of Marvel and has done a lot of other fantastic work, is in this movie as a supporting character. Then you add, like you were just about to allude to, Timothee Chalamet, Zendaya, Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, Rebecca Ferguson. Like, it's insane. It's incredible. Javier Bardem might be my favorite character in the whole movie, and I didn't even mention him yet. So the cast is absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, and not only is it just like big names, but they all do such a good job. Like Timmy, what? Like, I think this might be my favorite Timmy role. Like, he did such a good job with this, and like, obviously trying to avoid spoilers for now, but this character has a lot on his plate. And if they make a part 3, I'm really excited to see where Timmy takes this, because I think he did a great job. Same with Zendaya. I think Zendaya has never really gotten a role like this with as much meat on it before. So besides Euphoria,
I was gonna say maybe Euphoria.
Yeah.
Although it's different.
It's entirely different.
It's very different roles. Yeah, you can't even compare.
You really can't compare them all.
Yeah.
But yes, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
And she's great in Euphoria. But I'm so glad that she's getting more of those type of roles. I see it here. Javier Bardem brings so much charisma and comedy to the film. Like, I wasn't expecting to laugh.
I was so happy.
I
was so happy. Not that the first movie is dry at all, but whenever there's an extra added layer of comedy to sort of cut the tension in a way that feels natural. And it's not only even like, because he's obviously like kind of the comedic part in it, but the editing in terms of the way that they were able to do comedic timing with his character, with certain the way that the two different tribes of the Fremen kind of had their outlooks. Like, I just thought it was great. Like the way that, again, it's the way that everybody's able to come together and work together in such a cohesive way and collaborative way that doesn't feel like it's overdoing it in any sense of the medium is remarkable to me.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
It also brings like humanity into the characters more, so that you don't feel that they are just some faraway land that has no emotions and they're all just power hungry. Instead, you see them forming friendships and laughing together, and then you're like, oh, this is so great.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I mean, on the opposite side of the spectrum, however, the evil guys, you know, Austin Butler here as Fade Rotha he's menacing. And I've always liked Stellan Skarsgård, especially in the first movie, as the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. I love him here. Doesn't, you know, not like a brief role, but still one that is so memorable. Also, I don't know if you guys have any comments on this, but I really liked Florence Pugh and Christopher Walken. I just think from just their glances alone, especially Christopher Walken, you just understand everything about that character. So I thought the cast did such a good job.
Yeah, I liked the regal aspect to their characters. I'm not gonna lie, I wanted a little bit more to chew on with them, but I felt similar in the first movie to Zendaya and Bardem's characters. But I didn't feel like robbed of anything by the end. I thought we got enough of their characters. Charlotte Gainsbourg's character, I also thought was really, really great. And I do you remember her name? You know what I'm talking about? One of the Reverend Mothers.
Yeah. I forget her official name, but I just call her like the Reverend Mother. Yeah.
Reverend Mother Mahayam. Yeah, I thought she was really great in her scenes as well. And their whole family is very interesting to me. I'm very intrigued to see what's going to come with them. And yeah, there's another thing I was going to say, but it's a spoiler. So I can't say it. Yeah, I can't
Should we get in? Should we?
I think we should dive into spoilers, and you can give anything else you need to give. But if you guys are watching this and you haven't already gotten the point, go to the fucking movie theater and go see Dune Part Two. It's a revelatory experience. It's a remarkable piece of filmmaking, and I will say everyone that I personally know that has seen this movie hasn't come out saying it's good. They've come out saying it's amazing. Not only us. So you should go see this movie if you haven't seen it yet. It has a remarkable cast like we've talked about. Go see the first movie first. Don't be those people in the theater. Liz talked off camera about there was a moviegoer that had not seen the first movie and was just whispering questions to their significant other the whole time. Don't be that person.
I have questions still, and I've seen both. So you're lost.
Yeah, exactly.
If you haven't seen the first.
Just go see the first movie. It's on Max. Watch it first. You don't have to rush out to the theater to be the first one to see it and talk about it if you're not going to understand it. Understand the mythology to the best of your ability, and then go see Dune Part 2, which is in theaters now. And if you guys are here for the spoiler talk, we're going to start in 3, 2, 1.
Where should we start?
Paul fucking Atredies, dude. Holy shit. So it's I agree with what you were saying in terms of it being, it's probably my favorite performance of his, but Call Me By Your Name is also such a great performance to me, and they're so entirely different. But this was something where, and I'll be the first to admit it, I liked Timothee Chalamet as an actor, but I did feel like he was a little bit kind of bordering on the overrated side before I saw this movie. I was like, I think he's good, but I think he's too much in the aura of the world where I was like, there are better actors than him. Like, I just think that there are better up-and-comers than him. He fucking shut me down in this movie, because holy shit. Like, the transformation that we see over the time of this movie and the way that he gets injected or drinking the poison,
the water of life.
Yeah. And his character just switches so naturally to a version of him that I haven't seen. And he was really, really great in this movie. He was really, really, really great in this movie. And Liz had said previously, she'll probably get into the release dates kind of jumping and stuff like that. But this was a movie that would have potentially been in this year's Oscars, which is crazy to think because the acting categories are fucking stacked this year. And there are so many performances in this movie that I think can be in consideration. And it's very early. It's very early. It's very, very, very early. We literally haven't even gotten to this year's Academy Awards yet. However, I think there are tons of people in this movie that can be at least in consideration and currently frontrunners in a very early Oscars race for the 2025 Oscars. Because the performances are really great. But do we want to start on Chalamet? You want to talk about Chalamet?
Yeah, I mean, I've always believed in him.
That's your man. That's your man's.
No, so I didn't know the change that his character was going to take. I was kind of just the way that his mom, Lady Jessica, was starting to twist. I was like, ooh, okay. There's one of two ways that he could go as a character. He could either follow down the path that she's kind of going, which is starting to get a little bit of a sinister tone to it. Or not even sinister, but just maybe
a more jaded outlook.
Yes, or more like a calculated, manipulative tone to to her motives. Or he was going to go the complete opposite way and side with Zendaya's character and then go against his mother, which again I just didn't know because I don't know the plot of Dune overall.
That was where I thought he was going to go.
Do you thought that he was going to side with her and then eventually it would be like a war against him and like his mom?
I also didn't know any of the background.
I am so happy though that he is not going to be the like moral high ground character that I think a lot of these big film trilogies end up taking, kind of like Lord of the Rings. It's kind of like Frodo's character. He always teeters between good and bad, but then eventually becomes good overall. I love that his character is going to be going to the dark side. I feel it. If you didn't get that at the end of the film, I think you should rewatch it because clearly his character is going to be teetering on the struggles of like power and vengeance. I think that he does a great job of making that transition of going from not wanting power into then seeing the future and knowing that he needs the power. I totally believed it. I think sometimes a hard change like that with a character can be hard for the audience to really believe. But I think it was beautiful. I love him. He can do no wrong. And I can't wait to see him be an evil person.
Vinny, tell us about Timmy.
Dude.
Even more.
Dude. Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. Now that we're talking about spoilers,
yeah,
I think this also is like a testament to not only Frank Herbert's story, but how John Spitus and Denis Villeneuve has adapted the story into such a strong screenplay. And then we'll also go talk about the changes from the book to the movie. Paul's character, I just love the whole theme around Paul's character of like, beware of heroes. Beware, we put people on this higher pedestal and we look up to them. And it's a social commentary on religion and just politics as a whole of how, these religious organizations or governments, we put people at these pedestals, yet it brings a question of like, do these people really deserve to be praised? Because they themselves, it's not so black and white. It is a blurry gray line, and people do bad things for good reasons and good things for bad reasons. And I love that. I think this is what makes Dune for me so stand out. Paul's character is so nuanced, and it like you mentioned, Liz, after he takes the water of life, it takes such a darker turn, and I love how bittersweet it feels at the end. It almost it turns your stomach, but in a good way, because that's like a movie audience, like that we're human, like we like to see like the reality of situations. And I think that's what it does so well. And going into the change, because Denis has emphasized in interviews that he really wanted to make Frank Herbert's original point of, beware of your heroes, and that commentary of like, hey, this isn't somebody to actually look at as a pure-hearted messiah. This is someone to be critiqued. Frank Herbert's message was originally misinterpreted by many book readers originally, and that's why he wrote Dune Messiah. Denis wanted to really emphasize that fact and not have audiences come out with the wrong idea like it originally was. So he changed Chani's character from, loving Paul and sticking with him even after his hand in marriage to Prince Arulin, to now Chani is questioning Paul, not at the beginning, but then also completely leaves him at the end, and she's heartbroken, and she calls a sandworm, and it ends on that shot of her looking off into the horizon, which I thought was a great idea, because I think that really, it's like I mentioned, like that bittersweet sucker punch at the end that really just, I enjoyed that, and I think it really exemplifies the message and why this story is so well crafted. But I just thought that whole dynamic was great. I'm trying to avoid also going into spoilers for what I know of what happens
into
in
the next film,
book,
because I don't know.
Yeah,
I was gonna ask you guys what your thoughts are on, since we're talking about the change. Do you think, because I started walking out when I was thinking of like, okay, the change, like, is it really just a full character shift of he didn't want power, now he wants power? Or is there a level of Paul's like character that he still doesn't want the power, but because he saw the future, he knows that the only way to get revenge almost is to get that power? Because a key part for me was when he says to Chani that, like, as long as he's breathing, he will still love her. And so there's still a part of him that knows that there's still a part of him that still was. He hasn't fully changed completely.
Yeah.
So, like, what are his motives completely? Is he fully blind now and just wants the power? Or do we think he's doing this for vengeance fully for his family and for his father? What are you guys thinking?
I think we'll...
Or maybe Vinny.
I can give my answer if you don't want to. If you want to avoid it for a few minutes, what you think?
Well, it's not that I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Because obviously, like, he did this, at least from my interpretation of things, he did this much in revenge for House Atreides, but I've been spoiled for things that happened in Messiah, but I don't know entirely.
Okay.
So I guess we'll see if a part 3 does come about. I guess we'll see.
See, I think so much of it, and I'm gonna have to make a few references to Star Wars because it just reminds me so much, and it reminds me of the Anakin storyline. I interpreted it as so much of it is similar in the fact that it was fear-based first, where he was having those visions of what was to come, of all the people that he cared about and he loved, and then it turned into a vengeance sort of play. Because it reminds me so much of that relationship with Anakin and Padme, because he was so fearful, but he was also, and the thing is, like, he wasn't full of himself. Paul was not that type of character to be full of himself. But I do think so much of it was also Lady Jessica sort of being like, and I mean, think about the way that look at the character name. Gurney was even saying to him, like, you can get all these people to believe in you. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you can lead this. Like, you can be the Messiah. So there's always people in his ears, even if they have good intentions, we think maybe, similar to like what happened with Anakin and like Palpatine. Now, Palpatine was doing it straight up for evil. But it reminds me so much of that sort of figuring out with a character that's still young and not as experienced as like his father was in a role like that, being a leader, being an emperor, sort of. I think it started as something that was fear-based, but it very quickly became something vengeance-driven. And also part of that could be from drinking the water of life. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah, the water of life.
So much of that could have also enhanced what came to be, you know?
Because he can see he sees everything now. Or he can see the different possibilities ahead of him and what to do to get the ending that he wants, kind of.
Exactly. And I think he'll do that by any means necessary to get to where he needs to get to. But he still has love for Chani, which I think is real. But I mean, Anakin still had love for Padme, and then he fucking killed her. So my point is, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just. But I agree with what you're saying too. The way that they're able to, I love how they're able to project the ideology of hierarchy in this movie. Like, there's. I'm curious, based on Chani's outcome in the book, if there are separate ideologies within the Fremen, because so much of it seems like she's more online with Paul in the book. So, like, does she have a different outlook than what, like, Javier Bardem's outlook is? Because not that they're conflicting. They have different ideas of the Messiah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, is that similar in the book? Do you know?
No, I do not know. I didn't get that far into it.
Okay.
Like I said,
I'm very curious about that part of it. Because
what do you mean, like believing in the Messiah?
Well, it's like Chani challenges Paul being at the center of everything this whole entire movie.
Yeah.
And in the book, if she's so correlated to him and being in love with him and what he stands for, I'm curious if that is a thing or not.
I think, Vinny, you mentioned, maybe it was off screen, that she does kind of fall in line with Stilgar's mentality of being like, oh my God, it is him.
Yeah.
Right?
From my knowledge of the changes from the book, and we'll get into some more changes because it gets interesting. But anyhow, that's for later. From my knowledge, Chani is very much like off the bat, hey, Paul, you're the Messiah. And then, like we mentioned before, stays with him at the end.
Yeah.
Is not heartbroken like we see in the film here. So that is a valid like question. Like, is there that tension between the Fremen in the book like we see that tension in the film?
Because I think that adds so much more nuance and a deeper level of that ideology from different, even people within their own fucking tribe. They're like not sure what they want.
Yeah,
and she's not the only.
South.
She's not the only one. Like she has. I mean, and people change obviously back to Stilgar's side as the movie kind of goes along. But like that was very interesting. Like everything with the like how I felt with the first movie, where I felt like I wanted so much more with the Fremen. I was like so happy that we got so much more with the Fremen in this movie, because I'm like, I love these fucking guys. Yeah. These guys are legit. But to answer your question, I don't know. It feels like it started as something that was spaced out of fear, and then it eventually turned into a vengeance thing. Did you have an outlook on it?
I think a part of him still knows what he's doing, and that he's playing his cards the way so that he can get the ending that he wants. I don't think he just wants total power. I think he wants to hurt the Emperor like the Emperor hurt him and his family. But then I also think there's a part of him that was raised by his mother, Lady Jessica, and has had these whispers in his ear of like a hierarchy and a higher power that he also gets kind of sucked into. So I'm interested to see what happens in the next film of, does he kind of get eaten alive by this power hungry world, or is he able to stay grounded and then eventually reconnect with like the Fremen people?
Yeah.
Or do they all just, I mean, like Stilgar's character is literally his hype man throughout the entire film, and is just for Paul could sneeze and he's like a messiah, like it was as it was written.
I literally love the scene where it's written where he basically like denies, he's like, I am not the Messiah, I promise you, and it immediately cuts and he's like, he's so humble that he's saying Messiah
as it was written.
This is fucking hilarious. That like evoked laughter out of like basically my whole theater, which I was like, this is great that we have this sort of levity in something that like it's so tense. So much of this movie is tense, and you feel the stakes of every single moment. I mean, the fucking worm riding sequences are awesome. They're so incredible. They're so great.
Well, it's also great because I feel like us as an audience member, we're not like, it's not shown to us if he actually is the, like, what's the actual word that they call him? Do you guys remember?
The Lisan al-Gaib.
Ooh, okay, there we go.
But
I'll stick with
he
Messiah.
takes his Freeman name as Uzul Modib, after Uzul being the base of a pillar and Modib being the sand mouse.
which I loved.
Yeah,
I loved that
also love
part.
that too.
But I think it's great that they don't like we as the audience constantly are like, ooh, is Paul the Messiah, or like
Yeah.
is it somebody else, and is his mom just kind of like, is Lady Jessica just hyping him up and manipulating an entire body of people in order to keep her son safe, essentially. But that's, I kind of want to get into Rebecca Ferguson's
I was
role.
just gonna say, I think it's a great transition.
She was so good, so phenomenal. The change in her character from the first part, from part 1 to part 2, is just an actor's dream, I think, because you really get to push the boundaries as one a mother figure, but then also the fact that she's pregnant throughout this brings in a whole other element of like what she's mentally going through, and she's dealing with so many things. And I think her character's motives are really interesting to talk about, because is she coming, what do they call them, sisters or
The Bene Gesserit.
Yes. So is she motivated by the Bene Gesserit?
Gesserit?
Bene Gesserit.
Bene Gesserit. Great. Is she motivated by their prophecies and what they've been preaching, or is she motivated by her birthing Paul when she was supposed to birth a daughter and kind of wanting herself to be a part of this prophecy? I think it's just interesting what her motives are. So what do you guys think about her?
Okay, so there's
Break
a
it
lot
down.
to unpack. Yeah, because that's also one of my favorite elements of this film and the story as a whole. One, like you mentioned, Rebecca Ferguson is so fucking good in this movie. She's so like conniving and it's perfect. It's perfect. She has such a perfect blend and balance of everything here. But that is something I love about this story, is how nuanced and mysterious it is, because Paul, and that it goes back into the theme of like, we got to be careful of who we're putting on the pedestal here, who we're viewing as our heroes, because like you mentioned, we don't really know if Paul really is the Lisan al-Gaib. Like, we know that was Bene Gesserit propaganda that Lady Jessica put onto planet Arrakis way back in the first film. So her propaganda, and he even refers to it as propaganda in this one, it spread. It spread. And this might not, like, you know what I mean? Like, and it also says, like, a man doesn't survive the water of life, but Paul did. But how do we really know if a man can't survive the water of life if no one really tries it? You know what I mean? So that's very valid, and that's what I love about it, is that and it had such this darker layer to it. Like, Paul really may not be the Lisan al-Gaib, and it's just miracle. And he's also, like, Paul is trained in Bene Gesserit ways,
which
like,
he says at one point. He's like, it's a training of how to change poison in your body.
Yeah.
So it's like, what if he just knows how to do that because his mom trained him?
Yeah,
exactly. And I love that. I love the fact that, and yeah, I don't really have much else to comment except for I just think it adds, like I said, I might sound like a broken record throughout this entire video, but it just adds that layer of nuance that's the reason why I find this story and this cast of characters so much more compelling compared to a lot of other sci-fi stories out there.
Yeah, well, so much of it is also based on, like, it's so ritualistic to what that world is bringing, and it doesn't make you feel stupid at the same time while you're watching it. It really breaks it down in a detailed way, but they do it effectively and quickly. Like, it's not so, like, but you're holding on to every word because he's not sparing his words. Like, again, with how do you say the other writer's name? Spihadis? How do you say it?
John Spidis. I actually don't know if I'm saying that correctly.
Because it's spelled Spaiths. I don't know if that's actually how you say it. Either way, him and Denis are able to craft this really tight script in something that's still so grand. And Rebecca Ferguson's character, like you were saying, from the first movie to this one, but also in the fact that it's it's believable how she turns her whole character on a head relatively quickly in this movie, and you basically see like the capping of one performance in the beginning of this movie and then completely transforming into an entirely different character, and she might be the MVP. I mean there's so many great roles in this movie, but excuse me, she's top notch in this, and the relationship between her and Paul you see evolve in a different way, and they spend so much of the first film together that even their the fact that they're apart for so much of this made me feel compelled to go that other way, where I was like, oh, they're definitely like, he's going to go against his mother at some point. Like he has to. And then the fact that like by the end, she's like so proud of like the route that he's taking. And I'm like, this is not Lady Jessica that I remember. Yeah. It's just like crazy. But yeah, she's remarkable in this movie. Mm-hmm. She's absolutely incredible.
I also want to bring up something very important. It's a change from the book because Liz, you mentioned how, and I totally agree with this, she is dealing with her pregnancy throughout this entire film, and how the water of life gives consciousness to the fetus.
Yeah.
Of the sister Alia. In the book, Alia, like she gives birth to Alia, and Alia comes out as a like fully intelligent baby. That and in
the first book.
In the first book, okay. Yeah. And in the original 1984 David Lynch Dune version, there is the baby is born and she has like significant scenes where instead of her just being like consciousness linked with
in her womb still.
Yeah, in her womb. Like it's a talking
baby.
Child.
It's a talking baby.
It's a talking child.
I love the way that Denis did it.
Do you think they do that in the next film though? No, because it goes by 12 years, right?
Yeah.
Is what the next book is. Okay, so then they won't have to deal with the talking baby.
Yeah.
Thank God, because I think I would have been like, oh, I can't buy that.
So is there a chance then? So you said it's 12 years from now to Messiah?
Yeah, I believe 12
so
years.
We're not going to see, and we're already in spoiler territory at this point, so we're not going to see Anya unless they time jump, because she's not going to play 12-year-old.
Which was that the surprise? That was the surprise casting, right?
Casting,
Which, okay, then I knew about it because I did see her on the red carpet.
But you didn't know she was in the movie.
I just was kind of like, oh,
why
maybe
the fuck is she
I was
there?
like, maybe she's in it.
Well, that's why my friend.
I was like, maybe
I had the same reaction.
Yeah,
who I went to see the movie with. I'm like, listen, I understand if you want to kind of promote the movie and talk again. The fact that all these stars are in it, and then literally Anya Taylor Joy, who is also remarkable and is going to have so many other humongous roles in her. I mean, she's playing fucking Furiosa, like in her next on-screen role. But like, you could have just held that back. Like, I was upset with the fact
not had her on the red carpet.
Yeah.
See, I just feel like why keep it a secret casting? Like it was so irrelevant in my mind.
Yeah, I mean,
like be like, yep, she's in the film.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could have just done that. I think there were rumors that she was in it, and then it was like debunked because they probably didn't want it to get out. But again, if she's not going to play a major role in Messiah, because I mean, again, she's not going to play a fucking 12-year-old.
Yeah, unless they do something where it's like, except for it being 12 years, maybe it's like 16 years, or however close, or I don't know.
I don't know either.
Maybe they like progress her because she's already, because she, I don't know, because I don't know the world of Dune, but maybe she like progresses faster than everybody else.
Yeah, like she is already out of the womb. It says here that out the womb she's already more intelligent than most adults. So that could be a valid point.
Yeah. Oh man.
What do you think? I was kind of talking about this before. Mm-hmm. I don't think you were here though. Do you think that they're gonna wait a couple of years in order to have the actors naturally age in order to better tell this story?
No, it's coming in 2027. That's my thought.
Okay.
Right. I mean, it's not gonna be 2026. It's gonna be too quick of a turnaround.
What do you think?
They're just finishing the script.
I think because Warner Brothers still hasn't greenlit it yet. So
I think that's just because a lot of the time they want to see the only scenario in which things get greenlit before they're really released are television series.
Okay.
So like, even if a show is testing, like Only Murders in the Building was that. like season. I know. No,
Let's not talk about
all
that.
I'm saying is, like season 3 before it even dropped, they're like season
Yeah.
4's coming because it was I guess projecting really well. This movie, I mean, I think another part of it was that they need everybody back on board, and Denis was the one speculatively for the last couple of years. They're like, "Are you going to do Messiah?" And he's like, "I don't know." And now he's like, "I'm almost done with the script." So it's like they also might not be able to legally greenlight it. I mean, they can, but they want to see a script first, and they'll probably decide how they're going to go. My outlook is that, and this is what I was talking to my friend about, because of the star power involved, you need to do this movie soon because everybody else is going to be in everything else for the next 15 fucking years. So scheduling is going to be a nightmare. And this is like, there are certain characters in this movie that are at a certain age where like you kind of want to get them back quickly. I'm just thinking really Walken, but like, I don't know, again, if they have other elderly characters that are bigger sort of roles, like you're going to want to cast people relatively quickly. I can't imagine that they wait longer than maybe 2028, but I can't imagine this movie going beyond that, and I think 2027 would make the most sense. You think they're going to want to wait?
I don't know. Part of me thinks that it would be, if they're trying to just build and build and build on the epicness of this series, if they wait 5 years before even filming, so that honestly, I just think of Timothee and Zendaya, so that they can mature more and become a little bit older looking. That would make sense of the 12-year jump.
I just thought of something crazy, but there's no way they're going to do it.
But also, how is it a 12-year jump if the way that they just ended it is that he's about to go into a huge war with the other houses?
Maybe it's a long war. Like it's a
but they just skip the whole war. They just like go to like 12 years halfway into it.
I can't comment on that.
Oh, he knows. He knows.
Well, I've been spoiled some things, but
okay.
I also can't comment on it because I haven't read Dune Messiah.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
so it is tough to say. It is tough to say.
Excuse me, I almost choked. The thing I was gonna just say, but I would say there's a 1% chance that the studio fucking does this. Like, there's no way. Is they recast, but they're not gonna do that.
Oh, like a
like they
the Crown, like the Crown.
Yeah, like instead of aging up, they just like
they could never, because I'll be honest, the moment you take Zendaya and Chalamet out of this, a lot of the viewers are gonna be like, "Why would you do that?"
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't think you could do that. So I'm going to anticipate that this gets greenlit within the next 3 weeks, Dune Messiah. And I think that they'll have cameras rolling by the middle of 2025. Because if you look at also, this is just me going into like the Hollywood politics that I feel like I know a decent amount about. Zendaya has nothing on her calendar. Not a single thing filming. So her schedule is open. And then you look at Chalamet, and he only has the Bob Dylan movie, which is going to go into production very soon, and that's about a month-long shoot.
Yeah,
and
but Zendaya probably has it on hold for Euphoria.
I will make a bet with you that Euphoria season 3 never sees the light of day.
Really?
I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think it's happening.
I don't think ever?
They're aging out way too quickly, and the stars are getting way too big, and there's no fucking way they can afford all of them.
You don't think they have like a contract?
No.
Jacob
it's not a show that's set up that way. I don't think.
Jacob Elordi even said that he's heard nothing. Like, there was an interview where they asked, like, "Hey, is Euphoria season 3 coming?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know. I mean, if they want me, they're gonna have to probably do some de-aging on me." But
they can't play high schoolers anymore. And just think, so Hunter Schafer isn't like a legit star yet, but she's starting to get a lot more roles. Zendaya's a legit star. Sydney Sweeney is fucking huge right now. So is Jacob Elordi, and Coleman Domingo now is. And he's like a supporting character, but a very significant supporting character in Rue's journey. Like,
Coleman would go back though, I think.
Coleman would go back, but his schedule might be too busy. He also might join Marvel. So
don't do it.
Sorry, Liz.
Don't do it.
Just saying, he's the rumored recast for Kang. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that they're gonna want to take their time on this anyway, because the momentum is here. And why would you not want? Plus, they have the Dune series coming out this year. Like, they could fill in some blocks, but I couldn't imagine that they're gonna wait too long.
Maybe. I don't know. I get worried of like what they're gonna do.
Don't get worried with Denis at the helm.
Yeah.
Denis got this,
guys. There's a lot of elements in it.
I don't know. I think they're gonna be fine. I think they're gonna be good.
One thing I will say that I didn't expect from this film is that Butler was just going to only be in this film. I thought Austin Butler was going to be kind of the villain that takes over for Skarsgård's character,
I
but
thought similarly, we actually haven't talked about him yet, so I feel like
yeah. So
Yeah.
let's
Dive
let's
in.
talk.
Yeah,
Let's-
let's dive.
you give your thoughts because Vinny did give a little bit of his earlier.
Well, okay, so obviously we knew what he looked like just from the trailers, but the performance, man, he is really doing some great character work.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, everybody's been coming at him for like the Elvis thing of like, get rid of Elvis. Like he needs like an exorcism to get rid of Elvis from him. But I think he really was like, he shut everybody up by doing this performance and showing that he can completely do something different. And that he's also not afraid to be a terrifying looking creature.
Yeah,
Because he was scary looking.
I love his voice when he's like, "My darlings, I love get some meat for my darlings." I love his voice. It's so like menacing. So
yeah, he reminds me of like the new Bale. Like I think he has elements to that where he could be very transformative.
Yeah.
And I think Elvis was a huge fucking role for him. I mean, he did Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which like people seem to forget, but then it's like when you see his face, you're like, oh, I totally remember him because the scene is so memorable in that movie. But he just I will say this, and again, I might get my haters in the comments. I never looked at Chalamet as a movie star before this movie.
Oh.
I'm being honest.
Oh.
No, I'm being honest. I thought that he
I know
like,
exactly what you
and
mean.
I loved him in Call Me by Your Name. I'm not even kidding. Like I absolutely loved him in that movie, and I love that movie so much. But I saw him as like this really great character actor, like that would like still lead a lot.
Timothee Chalamet?
Like I'm saying, like leading a lot of great art house indie movies.
Okay.
He didn't remind me of the type of person that would be on like the posters of movies. Now I can say obviously he can do that, and he did it with Wonka too.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like Dune now, like I feel better about him in this movie than I did in the first one. Butler just radiates star power to me. Like there's something about him that like even Christian Bale can do movies where like he'll play Batman and then he'll do like American Hustle, where he'll like completely transform his look and everything. And like Butler's only had a few examples of that thus far. But like he looks great in Bike Riders.
Yeah, I was going to say
like,
that too.
There's something about him that I'm so compelled to see what he's going to do next character wise. And the fact that he's so menacing in this movie and he's already being compared to some of the biggest villains that we've seen on screen for a role that literally is only going to last for
Just
one
this
movie
film.
is incredible because he's so good and so memorable in this movie. The gladiator scene, holy shit,
Yeah, it was
so
crazy.
good. It's so good. Oh my god, yeah, I loved him in this movie. Did you have anything else? Because I know you talked a little bit before.
Yeah, I mean, the whole cast is great, but Butler just like knocks it out of the park. He's just menacing, and I don't really have much else to say. I've already kind of said everything, but I love his voice. Love his voice.
Also, he has a baby now coming though into the world, like his character. It's huge. It's huge.
All right, so I'm so glad you brought that up
It's
because I
huge.
would have actually forgotten it. You remember before when I was like, I can't say this is spoilers. This is what I'm fucking talking about. First of all, such a great nugget
Yes.
to leave us with. And then like it's so because there's so many significant things that happen within this movie, but I'm still coming away like you did. Like that's a major fucking ball that still needs to drop.
Yes.
And I love her, Leia Seydoux, I think is how you say her name.
I
Yeah,
think
Seydoux.
so, maybe.
Yeah, Seydoux. She's a French actress. She's really, really great. But I want like in the beginning when I first saw her character, and then I found out that she had his baby inside her, I was like, oh, this shit's about to hit the fan in Messiah. I can't fucking wait. But yeah, that's significant. That's
huge.
That's really, really significant.
Yeah. I wanted to bring that up. So thank you guys for reminding me. Like, and I could be wrong, but in the book, Leia Seydoux's character, who is Lady Fenring, who off camera I actually said that Lady Fenring was Charlotte
Gainsbourg's
character. I was wrong on that. But her character here in the book, we see her husband, who I believe, I could be completely wrong on this, but I think it might have been the role that Tim Blake Nelson was going to play.
Okay.
And not knowing what happens in Messiah, I'm really excited to see what, maybe they do bring Tim Blake Nelson in.
Yeah.
And we have this element of this Harkonnen baby between their relationship and the whole Bene Gesserit like plan and what they are doing behind the scenes just really interests me. I
also think it's interesting that Florence Pugh's character, Princess Arulan,
yes,
is a part of that world too. And so, but she seems not as like she doesn't have her hand in the pot fully. I think she is more of an observer kind of. So I'm interested to see how her partnership with Paul progresses. I'm just interested in that relationship to see if it's something that they end up coming together to become a force, or if it's just constant battle between each other, like mentally and for power. Because at the end of the day, she was supposed to be the Empress too.
Yeah.
And so now, I mean, I hope Florence Pugh, like, I want to see her character become a little manipulative.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
I'm really interested to see her and Walken in the next movie.
Yeah, I know Denis said in an interview, he said he said the same thing to Florence that he said to Zendaya, which is like, hey, like he said to Zendaya that like in the first film, hey, you're not really going to be in it that much, but if we get greenlit for a second,
you're it.
This is the appetizer to the entree.
Yeah.
And supposedly I was watching an interview with him. He said the same thing to Florence. Like, this is the appetizer, and then your character is just gonna have so much more shine in the next one.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see where they go with her character.
Me
Especially
too.
just like also her significance in the politics of things. Like you mentioned, she's been through the Bene Gesserit program, but she's also been through, I don't know how old her character is, but she's been through a significant amount of her life being a part of the Galactic Empire and being such a high rank of above everyone. So I'm curious how that dynamic is also going to play with someone like Paul, who his family was murdered by her family, and he's now this messiah figure to the underdogs, essentially.
Yeah.
So
I have 3 significant things still to bring up.
Bring it up.
All right.
What do we
I'm
got?
going to start with the first one. The
Yes.
first one, Vinny actually said off screen, which I'm glad you kind of painted the picture for us, because it's something that I actually really love about this world. How Liz had made a comment, because I don't think we said this on camera, about the fight scene between Brolin's character and Batista's character, which you can go into it if you want. But I actually like the fact that because of the star power of these casts, you look... So we come out of and we're in spoilers again, so we're way past that shit. But first movie, no more Jason Momoa, no more Oscar Isaac, no more David Desmalchin. We get to this movie, we now have no more Austin Butler, no more Dave Bautista, no more Stellan Skarsgård. So there's room for people of legitimate rank and status to die within these movies. And they're not afraid to do that and cast like legitimate great actors in these roles where they know they're going to play significant parts, but they're going to have to cut them off when the time is appropriate. That's something that I think is great. The second thing that kind of alludes into this Messiah thing for me is, and again, I don't know the story, so this is just my speculative, what my friend and I were talking about, like, where do we think they're going to go with the next one? We think that the next one's going to be very much about all these different houses for this giant war. One, how many houses are there? And 2, it's like, so we already have this fucking cast. And this movie is going to probably be one of the biggest movies ever made. Like in terms of even like box office and critical acclaim. Who else are they going to bring in? Like, this world is so vast and so detailed. And like Vinny was just saying, like, Flo didn't have much to do in this movie, but that's okay, because she's going to have a more significant role in the next movie. Zendaya and Javier Bardem in the first movie didn't really have much at all. And then the second movie, they're very significant parts of it. So I'm not saying that's going to happen to whoever these third people are, because I do believe Denis has a very set vision on like, we're doing 3 and then I'm done. Who knows what fucking Warner Brothers decides to do, but Denis done after 3 is what I really think. So who do they bring in? Like, what is that going to look like? This huge fucking, and if this movie's 2 hours and 46 minutes and they had to cut 2 characters entirely, like, how long do we go for Messiah? Like, crazy. And then the last question I could say for the end, but
the one thing I will say is that they don't have to set up the world as much.
Yeah.
The only thing that they really have to do well of introducing the houses and making it clear the division between each house, which, I mean, I just keep thinking back to the Lord of the Rings. There's so many different, like, there's elves, there's just like so many different families and groups. And I think as long as you visually make it easy for people to tell who is a part of which house, they'll be able to get the story rolling without having to do too much background and like biography kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I think this is another change from the book but what I personally really like it. I've seen criticism for it, but making the Harkonnens stand out visually. Like they're all bald and dressed in black, which also, just a little, sorry, not to go on a tangent, but also is a nice note to how environment affects you, because they live under a black sun, so everything's in black and white. So it just figures why they'd be very pale and they'd only dress in black clothing. But I know in the book, I believe they're actually all supposed to be like redhead and ginger. I could be wrong on that, but I just know in other previous adaptations, Feyd-Rautha and Vladimir Harkonnen is redhead. But I would also, I know you mentioned like having distinct attributes to each of these houses, which I would really like to see, because I personally really liked seeing that in House Harkonnen. So seeing like other type of like alien races.
Something.
Yeah. Should I make my last point, I guess?
Yeah, let's hear
All right,
it.
so the first Dune, and again, we're talking way too early. The first Dune movie won 6 Academy Awards.
Oh, we're going into award season.
Yeah, but so this is the reason why. Because the first movie, I feel like, as great as it was, and it was a great movie, it didn't have this, like, it didn't stick in the culture as much as I feel like they had anticipated, where I think this movie is going to stick for a very long time. And again, we're going to see the full trilogy and see how it all plays out. They were nominated for 11 Academy Awards. They won 6. Okay? They got no acting nominations.
Which I'm not surprised about.
I'm not surprised
characters
either.
in part 1 are kind of very typical stereotypes a little bit, just to get people into the world.
Yeah. They won for sound, visual effects, production design, score, film editing. Oh, I'm sorry. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. They won 5. Oh, no, I'm sorry. And cinematography, 6. They were also nominated for editing, or for motion picture, makeup and hairstyling, costume design, and adapted screenplay. So almost all of the major awards that you can get nominated for without an acting category. Are they going to
get acting ones?
Are they going to top what they did in the first one? I mean, it might be harder in terms of year and competition, but this might be one of the best movies I've seen in a very long time. So do you have any sort of outlook on it? Like I said, I know it's very early.
I have thoughts.
Okay.
I think production-wise, script-wise, they'll probably get the same noms that they got before, just because of the scale of the production. If we're talking acting, the only people that I could see getting nominated, and I mean, I don't even know what we're going against, is, for me, definitely is Butler and Ferguson. Chalamet, possibly, but it really depends on what he's going against.
Yeah, I would agree.
I could definitely see Butler getting a supporting actor, because he just came in and was like, I'm gonna rip this thing apart and murder it. Ferguson, I really just love her performance. I could see her getting a backseat, but
yeah, I feel similar.
Everybody else, I mean, they're great. I just think it's a great ensemble, while a lot of those big acting roles, they're for standout performances.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Vinny?
No, I completely agree. I think that it's really hard to judge because we're so early in the year,
Yeah.
and like you mentioned, we haven't even got to.
Like we're barely in festival season.
Yeah.
We're not even in like.
We're not
Yeah.
even in festival season. South by's like next week.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I do. This is a really incredible film, as we have said, and I've seen this film twice already. I adore it. I think that this is. I'm not gonna lie. This is like on. I think this may or may not. It's in competition for my favorite sci-fi movie I've ever seen, and that's saying a lot. I think. I hope that it gets the same attention that it did in 2021. But then again, 2021 was a weaker year, so it might have just been. Please,
It's hard.
I want them. I want to see Rebecca Ferguson get nominated. That is someone that because I loved her in this. So I 100% agree with both of you guys.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that acting wise, I could see Butler because it's reminds me of sort of that Joker element to Dark Knight where it kind of came up out of nowhere and everyone's like, "Holy shit! Like, where did this come from?" In a different sort of way because like he was a fantastic actor, but he kind of came really out of nowhere with that. Like people were so pissed off when he was cast as Joker, and now he's like one of the greatest movie characters ever. With Butler, like he had the Elvis thing, but like you said, there's so much attached to that. They're like, oh my God, like let's like get the Elvis out of him. Like,
Literally.
what's going on? And then he plays a character like this, and it's like there's no Elvis in this at all. Like what the hell? So I would say him. Yeah, Chalamet is gonna be tough. The thing is, like, he's so good in this movie, and there's so much to his character and his performance that I really hope he's in consideration. But these kind of movies, unfortunately, like the leads never get that kind of attention. Like I think Robert Downey Jr. could have been nominated at any point for playing Iron Man, and he wasn't. So I can't see that happening necessarily. I think there's an outside chance, but a lot of it is based on the showy performances and what comes. Yeah, and I mean Rebecca Ferguson is phenomenal in this movie, so I would also hope she gets attention. But I would say if they do get an acting one, it's probably Butler. And I had to see the rest of the field, but I mean,
I'm excited
it
for
would be
it.
hard to argue.
Do we have any box office numbers? I don't have anything.
Yeah,
written
I
down.
could pull up the definitive ones.
How's
that
it
I have.
It's doing pretty well,
It's
right?
doing remarkably
Last
well.
I checked, it was like smashing the box office.
Yeah, so let's see. Dune
Let's see what
Part
it's
Two.
making.
box office. So I know that. Yeah, so it made domestically, it made 81.5 million, which is really significant number.
And that's only opening weekend.
Yeah, and internationally, it made another 97. So its global total over the weekend was 178.5 million. So we're
cleared
almost
its budget back. Its budget's because I think it was 140 million,
that seems low. Is that real?
or maybe 4. There's a 4 somewhere.
I think it was 190 million. Because
I was going to say 200 million sounds more likely.
The first film was 140 million.
I was going to say because also
Really?
when
then-
you're bringing in other people of this caliber, 190 million.
Okay.
Oh, and I'm sorry. So the updated box office is actually 182.5. So they almost made their budget
They almost
back.
made their budget.
However, also marketing you kind of put in. So, I mean, they're going to clear it anyway. But they probably have to make 300 million to break even, which they're going to do probably by next weekend.
Because people are seeing it twice too. I mean, Vinny, how many times are you going to go see it?
I might see it
I'm
a
seeing it
third
again.
time.
I'm definitely going to see it again in theaters. I need to see it again in theaters.
Yeah.
I just really, really want to see it again. So, I don't know. There's
Do we have more thoughts?
This movie's great. I feel like we've talked about this movie roundabout so many ways.
Yeah.
I feel like there might be more you have.
I
but
do. I have a little bit more thoughts.
Yes, talk to us.
Go ahead.
So actually, I apologize, Liz.
No,
please.
I don't think you can be, because I know you said you saw it in Dolby, but this is specifically for 70 millimeter question. So I apologize. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Because I saw this originally in IMAX laser projection, and then I saw it in 70 millimeter film.
Mm-hmm.
However, I was going into this hesitant because something like Oppenheimer, seeing that in 70 millimeter was incredible. The image was just beautiful because it was shot on film, and then it was projected on film. But with this, Greig Fraiser shot this digitally. They edited it digitally, and then it was converted to film, And Warner Brothers only gave the okay to that because they saw how good Oppenheimer did.
Yeah.
So then they said, okay, and then they did it. And it's been doing very well for the exclusive showings of 70 millimeter.
Mm.
For me, I don't regret my experience.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was worth it.
I don't think it didn't have any other, like, it reminded me. I saw Oppenheimer in regular IMAX.
Okay.
And it felt very similar in terms of my experience. So I would agree. I don't think you need to see it in 70 millimeter. But I definitely think it's something that could be significant for IMAX viewing. Like, I do understand if sometimes it blows people away, but the IMAX experience, I've like come to really enjoy the IMAX experience for the movies that call to it.
Yeah.
You know,
no,
like
100%.
like Oppenheimer.
You can't watch like past lives.
No, yeah, like of course. But like Oppenheimer was just like, I would say 3 of my favorite movie going experiences in my entire life were in IMAX. And yeah, like you were, at least your question on 70 millimeter, I didn't feel like it was a necessary thing. I was just like, yeah, I'll go see it in 70 millimeter.
Yeah.
I feel like I never
But-
see anything in IMAX.
Yeah, a movie like, I'm surprised you didn't go see this in IMAX.
I think I'm one of those people that like, I don't know. I don't really prefer it.
Okay, well, that's fair.
Because sometimes I'm so like, this is so, the whole time I'm like, this is so big. Like, this is huge. And then I'm not like paying attention. I'm so like, I'm just trying to focus on like the shot that I'm not invested in the story.
I can understand that.
And that's just not because I think it just depends on what type of viewer you are. Vinny, I think you have like a great eye and you just naturally look to filmmaking and like the photography of the film. I kind of have to like force myself to think of that, of being like, was that a good shot? Oh yeah, that was a good shot. Versus like my brain is just always like, does this script pop me out? Or like, does the performance make me think like, ooh, they're pushing right now? And IMAX doesn't help me with that.
I feel like I need to see something in Dolby because my biggest, visually, of course, there's a standout with IMAX, but my favorite part of IMAX is the sound. Like, in my opinion, like, Oppenheimer was a great experience. This was a great experience. But the first time I saw Force Awakens, which was the second time I saw the movie, was the first movie I ever saw in IMAX. And I was like blown away by the sound. Like, it just like made my body vibrate.
Dolby's pretty crazy with the sound.
Yeah, I kind of want to do it Dolby.
It's intense.
I agree. I think Dolby has better sound because like the theater is literally meant
for the sound.
For Dolby sound.
Yeah. Didn't Escape have Dolby? Like did you go to Escape theaters?
I did. It did not have Dolby.
It didn't have Dolby. It had like something with sound in like those one of the theaters, right? Or am I completely misremembering?
I know they just had like a lot of IMAX. Okay. It was like
every theater's IMAX.
Yeah. There was like 4. Well, not everything, but there was like 4 IMAX screens, which I believe is
impressive.
The most in one theater on the East Coast before it got shut down.
And now it shut down.
So
I worked there for a short time, but I didn't even know that they fucking had that. So that tells you. But did you have anything else?
I did. I actually wanted to talk about something.
Okay.
Let's talk about the romance between Chani and Paul.
We didn't talk about the chemistry.
Yeah. Some spice.
Yeah. Some spice, literally.
Yes. Literally and figuratively. I actually really enjoyed their chemistry here. Because I'm curious if you guys thought the same or thought different. Because I feel like elements of film like this are usually very controversial. Like people either like, wow, that was cheesy, or that was bad, or no, they had no chemistry, or people love it. For me, I really liked it because something felt very mature about their relationship. How Chani wasn't always on Paul's side, and at the end, she isn't on Paul's side. But there's that middle part where they find a mutual ground and they connect. And I found it very mature how like he's having a bad dream. He's having that nightmare of if he goes south, starve, millions of people starve. And she kind of like wakes him up and treats him and, cares for him. I don't know. I just wanted your guys' opinion on that. I just thought that element was actually very mature and something I really appreciated and what really sold the arc of both of these characters by the end of the film, as well as going back to Hans Zimmer's score. the track "A Time of Quiet Between the Storms" like plays as a companion track behind their scenes, and it's so beautiful. It has like these like cosmic synths, and it's like and it's just it's
I
wonderful.
love it, Vinny.
Yeah, thank you. It's genuinely wonderful. I just thought it was Hans Zimmer. Sorry, I don't mean to go on another tangent here, but just there's so many moments in this movie where Denis and Zimmer they put visual and audio together, and it sends chills down my spine. And many of those moments when this track is playing and they kiss for the first time, like that was like chills. So I don't know. Did you guys feel different or the same?
Do you want to start?
No, you can go ahead.
I was gonna say, I definitely felt a lot more chemistry. I mean, the first movie she's kind of barely in it, and like she's just like the apple of his eye. But this movie, you definitely feel it. And I actually, I thought Zendaya did a really good, underrated job of like showing how she cared in the beginning. I love the sand walking scene. I really love the sand walking scene where she's like onlooking, and what did she say? She says you sand walk like a
you sand walk like a drunken lizard.
Yes, which I loved.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I definitely bought their chemistry, and I think that that's why I'm so curious on. We talked a little bit beforehand of what's to come with the three of them, between them two and
Yes.
Flo. So that's where I'm at. I know you definitely.
I love it. I love a romance thrown into any story. I think what really helps their chemistry is just from an acting standpoint. Anytime you already have a previous relationship off screen with somebody, and they clearly just from all the press that they've done, and they've even said that they're just great friends in real life, automatically helps them become very comfortable with each other on screen. And that's all that it takes to have a connection that shows, is being able to trust that person that this is just a job and that it's not really anything more off camera. And although I will say, from Little Women, the chemistry between Pugh and Chalamet, I love it a little bit more, I think, than Zendaya and him. So
That's valid.
I'm really excited to see what happens between the two of them, and if it's like what happens between the triangle of the three of them.
Yeah.
I don't want it to become too overbearing though, because that would just kind of ruin the scale of the world, I think. Because if they get like lost in this romance of trying to bide for his attention, I don't think that that's really needed. I also don't think that Zendaya's character will go that way. I think that they've ended it on a good note where she's not really going to be pining for him. She's off, going to be like, okay, well, that was that, and I'm moving on. But after you telling me the whole thing about the book, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but I love it, and I'm glad that they added in this little sprinkle of love.
Yeah. I always think it's funny how Zendaya is in a long-term relationship with Tom Holland, who won the Spider-Man role over Timothee Chalamet, and now she's in
Best
Dune
friends
with
with
Timothée
him.
Chalamet and really good friends with him. I think that's funny.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I was getting the vibe from Flo too, and what their relationship is going to be together, her and Paul. It reminded me of not that Paul reminds me so much of him, but Flo on the other side with like Joffrey and Natalie Dormer's character in Game of Thrones. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I could see that.
I have like a little bit of a vibe there with Florence Pugh, where she's going to be very manipulative, like you had talked about a little bit with his character, and I'm very interested to see
if they respect each other's like manipulation, or if they end up hating each other.
Yeah, I'm very curious on what's going to happen with the two of them.
I know.
Being together.
Yeah.
Very, very curious. So.
Because she did have the upper hand at the end of it. She was like, spare my father. And he was like, okay.
Kiss my ring, bitch.
Kiss my ring. And she was like, but you're still doing what I want.
Exactly.
I'm hyped. I'm hyped to see what happens
excited.
between the two
See,
of
like,
them.
I don't even want to wait fucking 10 years for
I would
this
wait.
next movie.
I'd wait just to see them get a little bit older.
I don't know.
I'd wait.
Now, but that's just me being greedy.
Can you imagine like waiting and like it's 12-year difference? How crazy Rebecca's character would be.
That'd be nuts.
Lady Jessica's character 12 years down the road, she's going to be just like, although the daughter, she's going to be another, like,
I don't even know who they cast. In
Maybe
that
I
role.
should read the books. It'll take
Maybe
me
we
like,
should all read the books before
Yeah.
2027.
should we have a race? Who
We'd
can
have more
finish
of-
first?
We'd have more of a background.
We have time.
We
have
do.
time.
We do have time, but it also sounds like he's not trying to go the route of the books necessarily.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
I mean, I feel like the whole ending with Chani is really because if they're supposed to stay together and Chani's she runs away, so that changes a lot.
A lot.
That changes a lot. So yeah,
And where's she going?
settle out her heartbreak. I
Yeah.
guess. You know?
She's gonna be riding the worms for eternity.
Oh my god, just riding worms, doing her thing. All right, I feel like we need to wrap this up. We've been talking for a long time. I feel like we got to give scores. What time are we at? Let's see.
We are at an hour and 30 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. This is a longer one, but yeah.
Yeah.
Should I go first?
Go ahead.
All right, this is a 10 for me. Now, I am the type of person, we've talked many times on here, I still give 10s to movies that I don't believe are like necessarily completely perfect. It's just something that hits me in the right way, and I really, really love and appreciate the movie. I gave out 6 10s last year, so it is what it is. But this movie is really great. Oppenheimer was my favorite movie of 2023, and I like this movie more than Oppenheimer. So if that gives any sense of how I feel about this film. I can't wait to go see it again. One of the greatest movie-going experiences of my entire life. And I'm like, I was excited about this franchise and this world as a whole after the first Dune, but now I'm just like in awe of what Denis was able to achieve and is constantly able to achieve. And he really, when I look at his filmography, he might be my favorite director ever because of how different everything is. Like Prisoners and Sicario are two so finitely crafted great crime movies and thrillers, and then you have things on these epic sci-fi scales like Blade Runner 2049 and now Dune, and he's just a fantastic filmmaker, and I hope he never stops making movies. So Dune Part 2 is a 10 for me, and Liz, you can go next.
Now, I say this that I do feel like I want to see it again because I feel like a lot of my first viewing was me just trying to get a grasp of where we were going with the story. And I'd like to just rewatch it. I have a couple gripes with it, very small ones, which again, I feel like maybe with the second viewing will make me change my mind. The two main things is that I feel like the way they introduced the Emperor and the Princess was just a little confusing, or maybe not confusing, but I just wasn't ready for it. I wish Walken had a little bit more to chew on. His character, I think he was a little one-toned, in my opinion, which is why I don't think we really talked about him that much. And then my other gripe was that Brolin and Batista, their fight scene was just so disappointing. Like, it was literally 2 seconds and then he died. So I was expecting more after the big grandiose of him walking up and getting ready to battle. But still, it was an incredible film. I loved it. I will watch it again. And so I'm so close. But I'm going to do 9.5.
I knew it. I called it.
Valid.
I could change to a 10 after my next viewing. We'll see.
It's a fair point. Vinny Albano.
Yeah, so this film is a 10 for me. It's a 10. And Liz, I agree though with your point on specifically Batista's death. That was also something that struck with me of like, wow, that was really quick. And I really noticed it on my second viewing because I was like, okay, that really was really quick.
Yeah, it's like 20 seconds or something. Yeah.
Especially for like how I get like, you know, he's a big force in the film. However, everything else just is so overwhelmingly extraordinary that I could kind of just forget about that because everything else is just incredible. This is a 10. I think Denis, he is, like you, Darian, he is one of my favorite directors of all time. I adore Blade Runner 2049. I adore Prisoners. Arrival is incredible. Sicario is incredible. Almost every film I've seen from him is incredible. I love this guy, and I'm so excited to see what else he has in the future in store for us. Dune Messiah involved with that as well. I think his direction, his presentation here, you can feel his passion for the story. You can feel it in the actors. You can feel it in just, like I mentioned, the presentation and all these unique little traits and qualities that he works with his cinematographer Greig Fraiser on creating beautiful, just a beautiful film visually from beginning to end, and Hans Zimmer, a beautiful soundtrack to accompany this film. And it all just comes together in these bone-chilling, hypnotic display of scenes where there are just some scenes, for example, when Paul drinks the water of life, or when Paul arrives in the South, when Chani and Paul come together and embrace each other for the first time. Paul conquers the worm and rides the worm for the first time. Just, I mean, I could go on and on and on. This entire film, almost every scene almost, is just audio, visual, and every element together comes together. We talked about the themes and the cast and how the cast display these characters and their unique traits. And it all comes together, going back to those themes of beware of your heroes and that commentary on religion and how nuanced and how gray and morally ambiguous that these systems are, and how it reflects us and our human nature. This might be a film set tens of thousands of years in the future, but us as humans, we really never change. So yeah, 10 out of 10.
It was beautiful.
It was great. I love your manifestos, everything. It's
Thank
a
you.
fantastic movie. So if you guys have stuck around for this whole thing, hopefully you guys enjoyed the movie as much as we did. We have 2 10s and a 9.5. We absolutely adore this movie. Please go and see Dune Part 2. It's in theaters right now for you guys to enjoy your movie-going experience. Let us know in the comments what you guys thought about it. Are you on the side of us where you thought the movie was remarkable? Were you underwhelmed or disappointed by this movie? I can't imagine that you were, but if you were, please let us know in the comments what you were bothered by. Maybe you had minor gripes, or maybe you had major gripes with the film. We're very curious to hear what you guys thought, and also we love communicating with you guys in the comments. If you guys can please like this video, and also you can subscribe to us. We are the Culture Wave Media Network. We have a lot of great stuff upcoming for you guys, as well as award season coming up. So we're here to talk to you guys about all things film and TV. Also, you can follow us on social media. We're at Cinema Wave Media on Instagram, as well as on Facebook, Threads, and TikTok. We're also at _Culture Wave Media and at Jersey's Finest Pod on Instagram as well. Just signing off, I am Darian Scalamoni.
I am Liz Seiko.
And I'm Vinny Albano.
And we'll see you guys next time.